No problem.
सुस्वागतम सुस्वागतम स्वागत है एक नए नवेले पॉडकास्ट में। आज हमारे समक्ष टुडे वी हैव अश्विन बल्लाल. Ashwin lives in Chennai. He's been born up in Singapore. He doesn't speak Hindi at all. Do you don't even understand Hindi?
Very, very minimal.
Very minimum, right? So he's a United fan, and I saw your work regarding Cavani. He's a tactical analyst and scout. He's involved in scouting regarding a Tercera division club, Vélez.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
So, it all started, I think, pretty much a year back. So, in May 2020, so I decided, I'm sitting at home and not really doing much in the pandemic.
Hmm.
And I saw this opening on Total Football Analysis to just come and write for them. And I thought, okay, might as well give it a shot. So, I sent them a message. Chris is the founder. So I sent him a mail saying, I'm interested, and he asked me to send over like a test piece and etc. So I sent one over. He said, "All right, I think you could come on board and be part of our development team and sort of learn." So I got on board and started writing, and since then it was just learning and improving. And I guess after I can say I guess impressing Chris as well, sort of got to be on board of the team because they were approached, fortunately, by Velez to take up the analytical team at Velez. And so when Chris was, looking out for people to be part of that team, I guess my name came up, and I put in an application as well for that, and he took me in. So that's how it happened.
Right. So, I mean, there's a lot of good opportunities when you work for, because I've heard a lot about Total Football Analysis, and because I think, okay, it's a good firm and, clubs approach, but a lot of people also go their way. They start their own blog. So do you think like that's an easy path, or you should work for a firm established one like Total Football Analysis?
It really depends on your preference because when you work for a firm, sometimes you have to commit saying that, all right, I will deliver so many pieces. I will do this piece for you. I will cover what you need to be covered, etc. Some firms are like that. Some firms may give you full freedom. It depends. But with your own blog, sort of, there are people who've made it with their own blog. There are quite a few people on Twitter itself who publish their work on their own,
Right.
and that gives them sort of a more personal brand as such. And obviously, if their work is good, people see it, people like it, and they get their recognition and get into work. So there is no better way as such.
Hmm.
A lot of it depends on luck. Basically, who reads your work, who sees your profile, and it all comes basically interacting with each other on Twitter. But with a firm, I guess your opportunity to connect with different people is more because there are more people writing there as opposed to just you on your personal blog. So that probably is a benefit of writing for a firm.
Right. Because what I see from any individual who's done his work, he mentions in m number of people, like this coach, and it's a lot of graft. Especially initially, it's a lot of graft, considering the
True.
tactical. But why did you thought like 90% of the fan base or 90% of the people who watch football, they're like, yeah, very simple, like they want their team to win, Pogba get in the box and all that. But why did you went the tactical way? Why did you feel like you need to study the game?
Well, I guess football fans. Everyone's been watching football from a very young age. We grow up watching football, grow up supporting a team. I guess after a point, it was a personal thing where I felt I wanted to know more about the game. I wanted to know why. As a United fan, ever
Right.
since Ferguson left, I wanted to know why we were playing badly.
Yeah.
Right? It can't just be that a club just goes around just like that. So I wanted to know why exactly we were playing badly, and I just went about learning stuff on my own. And when this opportunity came up, I thought, you know what, maybe let me try and go deeper and learn more.
Hmm.
And I guess it was a stroke of good fortune that I came across that, and here I am today.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. Because again, considering what I think, if you support a club which is very well established, you don't become an analyst then, because there's no issues.
Yeah,
And I mean, obviously, United
true.
is an established club, obviously, but considering what's happening here, and we'll go to United,
Yeah.
obviously, what's happening there. But yeah, talk to me more about your work regarding Vélez, what the demand of you, how much often, and what do you give them basically.
So with Veles, basically, I'm a senior scout. So how Veles works is that there will be Chris, who's the head of analysis. Then we have Mario, who is a chief scout. So basically, everyone has to report to him. He's the head of the scouting department, and there are senior scouts for each position. So I am in charge of the goalkeeper position,
Oh, okay.
and there are others who are in charge of defenders, midfielders, and forwards. So for the goalkeeper position, it depends. While if there is a demand for the position, then there will be. I would probably have like 2, 3 scouts working under me, and if there's
Okay.
no demand, it's something that I could handle on my own. So basically, the junior scouts work, and they have these certain leagues to cover. And once they cover that, they have their reports every month, and they hand that over. So how those reporting structure works is that in the middle of the month, sort of in the middle of the month, so they basically go through the checklist and say they have 5 players that they feel could possibly fit the profile that we have.
Hmm.
And they'll pass that on to the senior scout. The senior scout will check. So sometimes maybe out of the 5, only 3 or 4, or maybe best case, 5 work. And we'll just give like a sort of approval for them to continue scouting that player. If it's completely wrong, we'll say, listen, it's wrong. Try moving on to a different set. And we'll also be doing our scouting on the side, and
Right.
they'll finish scouting those players, finish complete reports on them, and send them over again. And once that's done, we'll again just give it a check to see, maybe in the initial scouting they look good, later on they might look bad,
Hmm.
stuff like that. Once that's done, we just compile a complete report and send it over to Mario, and from then on it's out of our hands.
Yeah. And how does the report look like? Like, how
It's
deep do you go, or do you? Because I think what, as for example, if I'm looking at a report, I'd want it to be very concise and simple. Plus, obviously, very
Mhm.
good information. Valuable things.
Yeah.
So, how do you work about that?
So our reports, they don't have much of images and
Okay.
player images and stuff like that. It's mainly just full words. We look to cover, suppose if for our goalkeeper, say Manuel Neuer is our profile.
Hmm.
So we
Yeah.
want a keeper who can come out, use his feet, pass the ball. So that's the profile that we're looking for. So then in our report, we are looking to see whether the goalkeeper is good on the ball. So we talk about his passing, talk about whether he receives well, whether he's good under pressure, and then get on to the other technical stuff of a keeper. Is he good at coming out of his line for a one versus one? Is he good at
Right.
diving? Is his reflex is good? So it aims to cover all that, as well as we look to cover, some of the more physical aspects. Is the goalkeeper tall? Is he short? Is he big? Is he small? All these tiny aspects that might play a role, as well as a mentality. Say if he lets in a goal and he starts blaming his defenders,
Right.
that may not be the keeper that we want. If he lets in the goal and he's very takes it upon himself, wants to improve, that might be something that's good.
And how do
So
you mention that, the mentality aspect, in the report?
just saying, maybe suppose after reacting to a goal, so and
Okay.
so goalkeeper was not too bad at his teammates. He
There's
showed
no metric
support
for
for
that,
his.
right? There's no metric for
There's
that.
no metric. There's no
Yeah.
metric for it. It's just about whether you notice something. I guess it's
Right.
easier with outfield players. Probably if there's a bad attitude, you'd be very easy to see it. Rushed at the
Exactly.
referee, yelled at the referee, stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, are you happy with the goalkeeping section? Because I mean, obviously, initially we all start with the outfield players, and we study their patterns and all. So how did you
Yeah.
react? Do you feel like it's the it's a ladder proper? You're gonna work your way up, basically.
No, I think even, I mean, obviously when I got into it, even I thought there wasn't much with the goalkeeper.
Hmm.
But I think a goalkeeper is one of the toughest positions to scout for, because there are so many factors that you need to account for. If you're an outfield player and you take a bad shot, that is based on you. But if you're a goalkeeper and you're saving, the area where the forward shoots or any deflection, that also plays such a big role in your ability to save a ball.
Right.
And it's very difficult to pick up, because as a goalkeeper it's very instinctive. You see the ball, you move towards it, you try to reach it. So you need to judge that ability, and I guess I've been able to develop that. And I personally like the challenge of scouting a goalkeeper, because it's very easy from the outside to say, yeah, scouting a goalkeeper, the goalkeeper is
Hmm.
going to be the same, they're going to be doing the same things. Like outfield players, maybe a winger in one system may do different work from another system. As a goalkeeper, you're going to need to save the ball and you're going to need to pass and play. But the way you do that, the level to which you do that differs so greatly between any two goalkeepers that I think it's very interesting and very fun on my part to be scouting that.
Right. And can you name me some goalkeepers you've studied, regarding the reports?
I mean, I'm not really allowed to because then
Oh,
again that
okay. Yeah.
is with
Yeah. I mean,
right.
but yeah, the basic question I'll come to is like you watch, I think, low league games, right? And
Yeah, well, much lower league games
yeah.
definitely.
And I think the one thing because I've been doing that in Delhi, the capital, and I've been observing women's games, and the one problem is the camera angle. It's not as
Yeah,
wide as you see in European games, and
yeah.
even especially when you're a manager, and you've got the pitch side view. That's completely different. It's completely different ball game. But how do you cope with that camera angle, those narrow angles, and then to form a judgment basically?
I, so how I go about it, and I think how most other scouts that I know go about it as well, is when we start because all we do is on video. We are not there
Hmm.
on foot. So we mostly focus on when you look at Scout and Instat and all these data providers and footage providers, you are allowed to watch the player's actions alone.
Right.
So in that case, maybe from the past 3 or past 5 games, you watch just the player's action. So you see the player in your camera all the time, and you just focus fully on them.
Right.
After that, yes, it becomes very tricky. If you're watching full matches, the camera angle is never that great.
Mm.
If it's good, then you're very lucky. And scouting a goalkeeper is all the more difficult because they're almost always out of the frame. So only when the ball moves a bit back. So in that case, I'm just always trying to keep an eye whenever the goalkeeper comes in frame, even if it's just a hand in the frame,
Mm. Yeah.
just to see what he's doing, if he's communicating with his defense, how is he reacting, is he asking for the ball, is he making himself like a passing option.
Right.
And I guess easy way is if he's in the camera angle more, then I know that his positioning is higher up. So that's also a thing.
So I think if I'm a goalkeeper who plays in the third or fourth division, let's say, and I'm seeing a proper team formed to scout me, do you think they're aware of that, the goalkeepers, if that's happening with them or not?
With normal traditional scouting, I think most players become aware because they see a physical scout there. With
Okay.
video scouting, I don't really think so because the whole point of it is that it's all remote. So only once, maybe if the player is good enough and you want to get into negotiations, then the player might know saying, all right, I've been scouted. But there
Mm.
are also times where agents propose players and send the footage to players. So sometimes, they might know that, all right, if I need to, my contract is coming to an end at this club, I need to impress for another club. And that
Right.
affects their performance, and that footage is being watched by us.
Right. And talking about metrics, what sort of, I mean, obviously you work on goalkeeping position, which I think if I'm observing a goalkeeper, then I think I don't need to watch the whole play, like the most of the games,
Yeah.
and you watch certain aspect, which could be, again, which is comparatively easier in terms of, because obviously when you understand the whole game, or
I
like for
mean,
example, even if you look for a defender, like you get more of him, more touches, more availability.
yeah.
But for a goalkeeper, I know, I'm not saying the job is not easy.
Yeah.
Obviously it's not easy, but I think, yeah, considering that there's a bit less, like he's in less spotlight basically.
Yeah.
But yeah, talking more about metrics, um because you also, I think, watch outfield players, and apart from that, firstly,
Yeah.
how much time does it take to, how much time do they demand of you, Willis?
It's basically down to about an hour a day. So if you can watch
Okay.
an hour a day, then you should be able to get through easily a fair amount of players for the
Mm.
month. At least you should be able to get through like about 20 players in a month if
Right.
you dedicate an hour a day. So that's basically how it works. There's no set demand as such, but probably a
Okay.
good benchmark to keep hitting every month is an hour
Mm.
a day.
Yeah, and you also publish articles for Total Football Analysis even now.
Yeah.
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 So have you worked on a latest piece?
My latest piece, as in latest piece, was for their magazine. So it was like a full preview for the Euros and stuff,
Yeah,
which I
yeah.
did.
I saw that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I did a preview on Netherlands and Wales. So that was interesting because whenever a big tournament comes up, we always
Hmm.
look to get involved. So it was
Yeah.
very interesting to go into. national sides as opposed to club sides, because club sides always have a very fixed style of playing, and you get to watch more of it.
Right.
National side is very different, because a side might be playing in a certain formation for the qualifying stages. Come to the big tournament, they suddenly become a very defensive side because it's a knockout tournament and the whole tactics
Exactly.
change.
Exactly.
So it was a very difficult, not difficult, but an interesting, piece to write for
Did you watch?
Netherlands. And
Did you watch Spain versus Portugal just an hour ago?
no, I actually was working during that time, so I didn't see it.
Okay.
I
I
wanted
mean,
to, but
yeah,
I
I'll
didn't catch it.
I'll compliment the line you said by the example, because we talk about Guerrero and Cancelo being those
Yeah,
attacking fullbacks and tucking inside and all. But when you go to Portugal, the scene is completely different. Like Fernando Santos is a conservative manager, and you don't see them
yeah,
bombing that much forward. Which just says,
exactly.
yeah, which just says like we can sort of rely on these fullbacks and what they do in European clubs. But considering
Yeah,
what happens in the national team, the tactics, the demand of the game, it's completely different. But yeah, coming to the
exactly.
metrics, the source is basically FBref, Wisecout, Instat. Is there anything, or do you try to be
Yeah.
more complicated regarding that?
No, it's basically, I think with metrics there is so much scope to complicate things that
Hmm.
it's better that you keep things simple. So, you look at FBref, Wisecout, Instat, you get the metrics, and sometimes, there are certain metrics which people don't understand also. Like,
Right.
there are a lot of metrics like deep completions and stuff like that, which
Hmm.
once you learn about it, you understand what it means. But from the outside, you honestly don't really understand it. And to people, it might not even matter.
Right.
So, in terms of metrics, talking about my position first. So, as a
Hmm.
goalkeeper, of course, it's very difficult because it's very easy to look at save percentage as a very easy metric. But then
Right.
again, if you face lesser shots and save more, your save percentage is higher. And if you
Hmm.
face more shots, then again, it's
Exactly.
like that. Same way, you can look at your expected goals against and the number of
Hmm.
goals you've actually conceded.
Right.
You to look at how often the goalkeeper leaves his lane. There are goalkeeper exits
Is there
per
any is there
90.
any is there any metric for that?
Yeah, it's called exits per 90.
Oh, no, I didn't knew that.
Yes.
Wow. Acha.
So you see how often they leave the line, be it to
Hmm.
engage in a one versus one or to come and
Leave their
claim the
line. I
ball.
mean, leave their box, the area, basically.
Just their goalkeeper line. So
Yeah.
suppose they're coming out to collect a cross or something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
That will get added to the metric. And obviously, with outfield players, with defenders, your defensive duels and
Hmm.
those kind of metrics become important. Your aerial duels,
Right.
things like that. For your wingers, probably your dribbles, how many take-ons you complete, your offensive duels, your
Hmm.
shots on target, your conversion rate. Those kind of metrics become very
I
important.
think one thing which is very important is visual illustrations and the graphs and all, which I have no idea. How do you do that? Like, I mean, obviously we know that we can compare the data, but how do you put that in a graph?
So I think I started getting into visualizations, just seeing how people on Twitter were putting out stuff, and I started with Tableau at first.
What's
So
that?
Tableau is like it's actually a business intelligence tool, but it
Okay.
basically helps you create visualizations and graphs. And I found it to be very user friendly.
Okay.
So, I just downloaded it based on someone telling me about it.
Hmm.
And, you get data on FBref and Wisecout and stuff. You load connected to the data and you just start creating different sorts of
Understood.
visualizations, stuff like that. So I think it came more from me wanting to put that data in a visualization form. So I didn't want to have to read each line of data and
Exactly.
find out some things. So I once I had Tableau and I was figuring out how to learn it. First, obviously, you go to bar graphs and then you go move on to your scatter plots and stuff like that.
Hmm.
That's basically how I try to do things now. Even for well as when I try to compile reports or to learn about a player, I'll get their data and then put it into these different graphs and then see how the player is performing, as
Right.
opposed to try to read the data.
Exactly. What? That's a very boring question. But what's your most go-to metric? I'm talking about outfield players.
Uh, it really depends.
Hmm.
Personally, I like suppose if I'm looking at a defensive midfielder.
Hmm.
Personally, I like to look at possession adjusted interceptions and
Okay.
pass and some of the passing metrics as well. That's like a personal preference, because I like, defensive midfielders who can go and intercept passes and also be good at once they get the ball. Something like a
Mhm.
Pogba, basically. Obviously, Pogba's defensive side is a bit iffy at times,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's what I like to look for first, just as a personal preference. But obviously, if when it comes to scouting for the club, then it really depends on what they want to look for. Maybe they want their central midfielder to go up front and shoot and stuff like that. So then you have to look more at those metrics.
There's certain metrics which are so, I mean, so monotonous. Feel like, okay, XG, everybody's talking about XG. The Bundesliga is officially using XG, like they're showing that. So
Yeah,
initially, maybe let's say 3 or 4 years ago, it would have been something new. But now it's so common, even the media companies are like officially using that. They've got access to that. So
yeah,
again, do you get a bit, do you feel like I can't judge a player only by metrics? By
definitely.
show, yeah, I mean, obviously, but for example, when you're preparing a report, how do you try to combine your own what you saw from your eyes basically, and to complement that with metrics? Because I think
Definitely.
the
So
most
I
important thing, sorry to cut you off, the most
No, no
important thing
problem.
is to for that to be not boring, and for it to be
Yeah,
also interesting for the reader.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, like you mentioned, XG, the see, I'm not against XG.
Mm,
It's very useful in the sense that if you try to look at it over a large period of time, you will gain some good info on, like, if you will know whether your forward is taking shots which are good quality, as in they're having good chances or they're having poor chances.
right.
The problem with XG now is it's become so common that people decide to use it just for a single shot or a couple of shots when it doesn't really
Mm,
show anything. So,
right.
it's better for to be used in the long run, and that's where this whole thing about whether metrics are the best way forward comes about, because definitely metrics, they show you a lot of things which you may not have noticed but just by watching the player, and they give a concrete value, because you may
Right.
say a player is good at passing. With the metrics, you know how good they are at passing, and that's where the challenge comes in merging them into a report. Because what I do is, obviously, I see the data and I see the footage, and obviously if a data is standing out, I try to look for it in the footage. Suppose
Mm,
a midfielder's passing percentage is very low, like, it's very common for Kevin De Bruyne and Bruno Fernandes to have quite low passing accuracy,
right.
but that doesn't necessarily make them bad midfielders. It's just that they're trying to attempt outrageous passes all the time, that they
Exactly.
become unsuccessful. So if there's a very huge anomaly in some of the data, I try to look out for that and say, how is that happening? At the same time, if while I'm watching the footage, I see that the player does something well, like I said, suppose I find that they're intercepting a lot of passes, then I'll look over at the data and I'll see,
Mm,
okay, actually the value is high. So when making the report, I'll say, so suppose if I'm looking at De Bruyne or Bruno Fernandes, I'll say, yeah, their passing accuracy is low, but that's because they're trying such and such passes,
right.
or this player is making so many interceptions, and that is backed by this value, which is probably one of the highest in the league. And so that's how you try to sort of give meaning to the metrics by watching the footage.
So your first go to thing is metrics, and you try to find that in the pitch.
It See, I would like to go to the metrics first, but obviously it depends, because with metrics you're able to shortlist, in the sense that
Mm,
sometimes you may have 100 players, you can't see all the 100 players. So metrics provides a sort of shortlist in that sense, and or probably helps you compare to whichever player you want. There are so many tools which helps you compare players nowadays using data,
right.
and once you do that, it brings down the short list. So in that case, I go to metrics first, then I'll see the footage. And again, if there's something interesting, I'll just go back to the metrics to see if it's backed up or if there's something wrong completely.
Right. And I mean, obviously, we were talking about metrics, and I think I have to jump to I saw the final, Villarreal versus United, and it was the same old thing. It was again, you would question again, are United good with the ball in terms of breaking down an opposition?
Yeah,
And I think one thing which was completely missing in that game was Maguire. His balls, his we can question him.
definitely.
Obviously, we can question certain mistakes and individual things he does, but with the ball, maybe he's the guy who puts the most balls in the final third and all. So he's that
Yeah.
progressive defender, all, which obviously was missing. And you saw Unai Emery being pragmatist. So considering again, because let's say obviously you'd want to work for United, and like, obviously you'd
Yeah.
want to be a scout there. What can you do? Which mistake would you single-handedly point like this is the mistake, and this is what I do to improve?
From that specific game, I guess, like you said, Maguire missing was a huge
Right.
gap. It just not even for his on-field performance, but just for the whole club captain thing as well. But there was, I think, Emery was very smart in that he knew that United were going to play into his hands because
Hmm.
United struggled to break down a low block, and that's what he wanted his side to do. He wanted them to stay compact and
Exactly.
just remove all the spaces. He
And the
because
most interesting inclusion was Juan Foyth. Like he played in the right back
yeah,
position. Usually
exactly,
Mario Gaspar plays there, and he's a club legend, but
exactly,
he played him and he was marking Rashford throughout the game. And
yeah,
he was like, because I think the one thing which I knew from the get-go, and we saw the 2016 Europa League final, United versus Ajax, and when Mourinho said a very famous line like poets don't win many titles
yeah,
and humble pragmatism is important and all. And he played Fellaini in that game for the second balls, and they had 39 balls
yeah.
in possession. And I think if Mourinho would have been the manager, then they might have, because he would have not opened up Itna. And I mean, if you understand
It's
Itna,
true.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and Villarreal, they just didn't open up because I think what they showcased against Arsenal, especially in the first leg, because they were a proper possession-based team, and
yeah,
Unai Emery is that manager. And again, in that game, it was completely contrary. And same happened mostly in the Chelsea versus City game. Chelsea
yeah.
did the same. And again, what do you prefer? It's a very general question. What do you prefer? Pragmatism or a
I
team
mean,
trying to be a poet or creative and all? Obviously, depends on the
it,
players, but yeah.
exactly. See, it's very hard to choose, but obviously, when it comes
I mean,
to
I
a
mean,
tough
I'm talking
competition,
about United's perspective. Us context में.
yeah,
Yeah.
from United's perspective, I think under say Mourinho, we tried to be that sort of team that
Hmm.
could sit back and hit on the counter, be direct, and it didn't work. It was difficult to watch because of the quality in the United side. You have players like Pogba, you have players like Rashford, and they weren't really allowed to express themselves. So I guess from a fan point of view, it was becoming difficult. Of course, we won the Europa League
Hmm.
final. There was success and all that. But at the end of the day, he left because he was sacked because there just wasn't a concrete or good enough style of play that didn't seem appealing to the fans. And I still think United probably should have still won this Europa League final. Obviously, Emery was smart in that he
Yeah.
didn't let any space for Rashford, Bruno, and Pogba to really work in. But there were also fundamental mistakes in United side in the fact that there was virtually nobody in the middle of the pitch. I think Bruno was way too high up the pitch.
Right.
Pogba was dropping deeper, and it helped Villarreal because they weren't being stretched. There was so much of space that they didn't need to bother about, and they were just happy closing off all the passing lines and stuff like that. So it was more of, and with the pressure, United still managed to create chances. It's not like they didn't create chances. I
Yeah.
think Cavani's goal, of course, was scrappy. It was a deflection
Hmm.
and landed at his foot. But right after that, also there were good chances being created, which they just couldn't take. And obviously, even in once it went to extra time, it was just evident that the game was headed to penalties. So it
Yeah.
was either one that should have been decided in within 90 minutes, but I guess it wasn't, and it was more of Emery smartly exposing United's issues in the fact that he knew United a week from set pieces.
Yeah.
So they were winning so many fouls in United's half and just putting the
Hmm.
ball in, and without Maguire as well, there was just so much pressure on the defense. So
Right.
it could have been avoided, definitely could have been avoided because I think Villarreal scored off their only shot on target, if I'm not wrong,
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
and they managed to win a final.
Hmm.
So definitely, not to say that Villarreal didn't deserve the win. In all honesty, I feel they did for the way that Emery approached the final. But there were so many mistakes which United consistently made that led to them not being able to bring back the trophy.
Yeah. I mean, you talked about not having many midfielders, or especially in the middle of the park. for the create, because Bruno
Yeah.
was pushing high and he was engaging their backline. But again, would you bring a Donny van de Beek? Do you think he could be the guy, or do you think it's like there's no, like, not enough players there in terms of that creative
I
quality?
um, I wanted Donny van de Beek on actually at one point just because of his ability to move. I think one thing which has not yet been seen by a majority of the United fan base is just Donny's ability to keep moving around the pitch.
Hmm.
It was something he was really good at Ajax, and it worked in that system. It hasn't set in yet here at United. I still think he probably could have a decent or
Right.
good future at the club, as long because we've seen with Cavani's movement how important he's become to the team. And I feel Donny's movement could have certainly been useful in just moving a few Villarreal players
Right.
out of position, creating some
Hmm.
extra space. But I guess, obviously Ole wanted to trust the best players on the pitch and
Right.
didn't substitutions, but definitely probably could have been done.
Is Ole the man? Do you think Ole is the man? That's the whole question, because definitely he's not as good as a manager as Emery is or Tuchel is or Guardiola is, definitely.
Yeah,
And what he's done is obviously is incredible. What he's done with the squad in terms of Luke Shaw, Marcus Rashford, Greenwood, you can Scott McTominay. I know he's a very good man manager. Let's say, 1v1
yeah,
coaching, he could be very good in that. But in terms of studying a game and making decisions in a game, and again, we can question. I think obviously, you'll agree with me. I know you'll agree
yeah.
with me. But again, you talk about how do you think the board can provide Ole with, or do you think Ole can, especially in that game? Okay, let's say he would have brought in Donny van de Beek, but what I see is like he would have also done what Bruno was doing, engaging the back line,
Mm,
and could have played in the
yeah.
hands of Villarreal mostly. Do you think Pogba needed to take more responsibility in terms of more, because he was switching balls a lot and he was sort of
Yeah.
going very complicated mostly? Do you think for that, it's about that Cavani run, that thing which happened against
Yeah.
Fulham, that glimpse of moment which happens and then you break the line, that didn't happen. How do you break that? Because that's also very tough, because they were so compact Villarreal
Yeah.
basically.
So, I mean, first of all, there were questions in that Villarreal knew that United attacked mainly down their left side.
Hmm.
So, they were practically begging for United to pass the ball to Wan Bissaka because he's not as strong on the ball.
Right.
And obviously, this probably could have been something that was exploited because there was space down the right, and maybe Greenwood could have moved there. With Pogba, like you said, it's a bit different because Pogba was playing as a left winger for towards the end of the season,
Hmm.
and for the final he was shifted back into the midfielder role. So you're again asking him to play a complete sort of, it's not a new role for him, but again it's been a role that hasn't consistently worked for him at United. He's
Right.
been excellent in some games there. He's not been good some games there.
Hmm.
So it was a bit difficult because United's main midfield too has been Fred and McTominay, and while they've also not been world class,
Hmm.
you think that for a finals you'll probably go for those two players who are used to playing there, but then you'll
Right.
have to drop either Pogba or Rashford or Greenwood, and it becomes a
Hmm.
complete mess. So I actually agreed with the lineup. It showed that we wanted to go forward and attack and attack and attack,
Yeah.
but it also showed that obviously Pogba hadn't been playing there a lot, and like I said, when Bruno went up and Pogba came deep, the side just didn't look set in that phase of the
Hmm.
game.
Right.
And you asked if Ole is the man. I think so. When Ole came in fact, I didn't believe he was the man because
Hmm.
obviously we went on that whole honeymoon run, winning so many
Right.
games, but right after he signed, there was a dip in form, and I somehow wasn't convinced by the fact of. I mean, during his honeymoon run, obviously it was good being a fan, seeing United just winning, 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 but it didn't seem convincing at the start because at that point in time we didn't know much about Ole's man management skills as well. Those
Hmm.
started coming on later on, and we didn't know how exactly the club was going to go forward. And we reached four semifinals last season, didn't manage to get past any,
Hmm.
which
I
was
mean,
was
it was
obviously,
basically penalties. It could have, anything could have happened, obviously.
yeah.
And but yeah, I
So
mean, I'm so sorry for De Gea, man. Always he gets questioned all the time. Like
definitely,
he's the one on the spotlight, especially after 2017, 2018, when the World Cup happened. Everything's been going
yeah,
downhill for him.
he's
Yeah.
he's not been the same since then. Definitely, I mean, it. goalkeeping is a lot about confidence, and I think that's where I like Ole, in the sense that this season you would have expected United to have come out with a firm number one at the end of the season. Either
Right.
you tell Dean Henderson saying you're going to be number one,
Hmm.
or you tell De Gea saying we still believe in you, you're a number one.
Yeah.
But somehow at the end of the season, we're still not sure who's going to be the number one.
Yeah.
And obviously, while that's down to good and bad performances from both
Hmm.
keepers, it still speaks of the man management, in that Ole was
Definitely.
so good at just seamlessly changing the goalkeepers around. Suddenly Dean became the number one for a period of time with
Definitely.
no media outrage or anything.
Hmm.
So I still think it's more than Ole. I feel like it's a tactical team at United. You look at Ole, you look at Carrick, and you look at McPhelan, you look at McKenna and that whole team. It feels more like a perfect setup as opposed to just Ole. Obviously, when the blame comes on, it's only on Ole because he's the manager.
Hmm.
But I think honestly, and there were reports about it as well, that Ole handles this whole man management side, and obviously knows how he wants the side to play. I think he's very good. He has a good knowledge about football, but he leaves the more intricate tactical things to the likes of Carrick and stuff like that. And I think this group of them are all learning together. Obviously
Hmm.
You can't ask Carrick to manage a whole team tactically just as of yet. At the same time, you can't. Ole is also just picking up. He made such a huge jump coming to United. So
Right.
I honestly feel there has been significant progress, because United haven't looked this good a side since Ferguson retired.
Yeah.
In the sense that we haven't looked to be having squad that can challenge,
Hmm.
and our recruitment has been decent as well, or it's been improving for sure under
Right.
Ole. So definitely, going forward, I see fans saying, "Oh, Ole can't win a final against a side placed seventh in La Liga."
Hmm.
But technically you were outclassed in the final, and you don't
Right.
deserve to win the final when you get outclassed. So obviously, this next season is going to be important for Ole, because you can talk about progress, but at Man United you need to win trophies.
Exactly.
So if they're going to win a trophy in this coming season, it'll be massive. If not, they'll have to show quite a lot of progress, maybe
Hmm.
actual full on title charge, to really show that United are in it and Ole is in it.
Yeah, I remember when they played Bournemouth the previous season, and he
Yeah.
had a conversation with Ake, Nathan Ake, like a left foot center back. And that's what maybe he wants. He wants a defender, who opens the pitch, and he wants that. I think it
Yeah,
starts from the back line, the ball progression, everything.
exactly.
And again, you obviously Maguire was missing that game, and even when Maguire plays, like it's not like everything's opening up. It's not like everything's great.
Yeah,
Even then, also there's a lot of questions regarding the build-up in general. Again, I think it's about the recruitment. I think for Ole, it's about giving him the right players, and I think he's done
yeah,
considerably very well developing the players he's got at this very moment.
yeah,
And I think one boring question which again always pops out at United is there's only Bruno. There's only Bruno who's plugging that
yeah,
trigger, Cavani connecting the dots basically. So as a manager, obviously you'll be a bit lessly or least credited regarding what you're doing tactically. There's only Bruno there, right? And
yeah,
again, I think that's why people also misjudge Ole or even the whole staff, like you talk about. It's a proper wolf pack, basically. But you know what? I'll drift away from the topic and I'll come to end the conversation mostly the international football. What's happening? You're working on Netherlands, you Wales. Firstly,
yeah,
I watched the first half, the Netherlands game obviously, and against Ireland or Scotland, sorry. And
yeah,
again, I don't know what's wrong with Frank de Boer. I know. I mean, it just is the same narrative all the time again because what Ronald Koeman
yeah,
has done is completely vanished. And again, Van
yeah,
Dijk is not there, and I'm really happy to see Weghorst and Depay is obviously maybe joining Barcelona, which is an immense player, obviously, what he showed. But again, talking about Netherlands, considering a team which has a lot of still those roots of, you can't eliminate the word total football from Netherlands. You can't. I mean, obviously the
exactly.
generation is completely different, but yeah, how did you find Netherlands go into the Euros? Because I'm excited by that team.
Uh, I mean, to be honest, I've been a Netherlands fan since the 2010 World Cup, actually.
Okay,
So,
interesting.
when I not after they got to the finals, but that was like the first World Cup that I was properly able to watch.
Hmm.
And I really like that Netherlands squad. And since then, obviously, it's been up and down. We failed to qualify, and now we are back. But when Ronald Koeman was there and we managed to qualify, I was really excited. I was like, well, you know what,
Hmm.
we're coming for the Euros,
Right.
we're going for it, because the squad just looked so. You see the quality in the squad. I mean, you see Virgil van Dijk. Oh, okay, even he's missing, but you still have Delete, you still have your Frankie De Jong, you still have Depay, you still have Weghorst now.
Right.
You know the quality is there in the squad, but with Frank de Boer, it's it's very difficult to
Hmm.
be optimistic, because they the style of play doesn't seem to really dominate as the Netherlands should be with such a team. With the quality that you have on the ball, you're trying to go out and trying to cross the ball into the box rather than work your way through,
Hmm.
and which probably feels like it's not the best way to go forward. With Frank de Boer's record at Ajax was excellent. He was winning multiple titles there,
Right.
but since then he's been poor at Crystal Palace, and he's just not had a good run.
Hmm.
And suddenly trusting him with his job heading into the Euros, personally for me, I'm not a fan of it. I still think Netherlands should fingers crossed cross the
Hmm.
group stage, because
Hmm.
you look at the Gulf in quality, they should be able to cross it,
Right.
but it becomes a very, very difficult tournament for them after that, because suppose even if they win, their chances of playing, I think, France, Germany, or Portugal is pretty
Exactly.
high.
Exactly.
So it's I'll be afraid to look at that game, to be honest.
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
but they obviously, you never know. Some days, just your quality might come through and something may
Definitely.
click. So that's what I'm hopeful for. I'm honestly hopeful that at least for the World Cup, there's a different manager,
Yeah.
somehow.
Who's the one?
Just
Is there any Dutch manager? I think, yeah, Erik Ten Hag. No, he's not Dutch. Is he Dutch?
uh
I'm not sure.
I
I think
don't
maybe he
think
is.
Eric.
Like, yeah, his
Yeah,
middle
I
name is
think
Ten. I think
yeah,
maybe he is Dutch.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Eric Ten Hag is Dutch.
yeah.
Eric Ten Hag
Which could
is
be something
Dutch.
interesting. But I mean, I don't know. I
I
mean,
honestly was seriously hoping. Suppose Koeman ended at Barcelona this season, I was
hmm,
honestly just hoping he just gets back to the Netherlands and gets given back a job.
right. Yeah.
So
What's Ghost Hiddink doing? Like, he's always the one to pop up out of nowhere.
true.
Like, yeah,
Wouldn't mind him popping out of
yeah.
nowhere this time as well. But I mean, you never know. I guess if somehow if Frank de Boer goes far in this
Hmm,
tournament, then he's going to be backed definitely.
right.
So it really depends on this tournament. Hoping for Netherlands' sake that something happens.
Right. Now, changing the conversation a completely different direction. You watch a game. Do you watch it in one go? Do you have a diary next to you, notes, to keeping notes, a tactical board next to you, or do you wait, like you enjoy the game and then you watch it again?
I I watched the game actually. So I don't. The thing is, when I watch the game for the first time, if I'm having a notebook or as such,
Hmm.
I sort of don't know what comes next. So I might write something down, and later on I'll be like, okay, actually no, it's not that, it's this. So I watch the game and I just keep an eye out for stuff. So I sort of just see how the teams are shaping up, on and off the ball, where they're passing to, where they're looking to attack from,
Hmm.
things like that. And obviously you'll have key moments sort of stuck in your head.
Right.
And the next time I'll rewatch the game in about like 2 or 3 times speed.
Okay.
So then all the shapes and stuff becomes a bit more visible because you constantly see the teams moving in that. And
Right.
at that point in time, I rather than writing them down, whatever I make a note of, I'll start taking like screenshots of, and
Hmm.
I'll keep
Same.
them.
Right.
So once that's done, it becomes easier as well in the process, because when you're trying to show
Hmm.
certain images. So I'll just be having this load of images, and at the end, I just sort of pick out which ones best describe it, and I start
Right.
annotating them and making
I
them
think
out
the
in the
one thing
notebook.
which is very important is preparation. For example, like even I was watching the Spain Portugal game, and before that, like an hour later, before the lineup came, I was working on the tactical board, how who would mark who, basically, like very
Yeah,
basic. And I think that enables you to examine how the patterns will go, and then it's a bit easy because you sort of know what's going to happen considering the traits of the players and
yeah,
considering you watched the previous games. And I think that's very important. The preparation is very important. If you watch a game without any preparation, I find it very difficult, because obviously you can examine the lineup and certain patterns, but
yeah,
it gets a bit complicated, especially when you, like, for example, if you examine a team which is Tercera division, you don't know the players, the numbers all the time. For big
yeah.
games, obviously you can, which is obviously, yeah. But I'm really intrigued. I learned a lot regarding this conversation, Ashwin. obviously what you're doing is really good. I mean, obviously Tercera Division Spain. Do you have any? If there's no pandemic, do you get any possibility of being there or working there as a scout visibly?
Not really, because
Mhm.
it's the whole setup is for remote scouting.
Right.
But of course, once the pandemic lifted, it would just be good to go, just get a feel of at least watching the side. We
Yeah.
managed to get promotion as well now,
Yeah,
so
I
now
read
we'll
that.
be,
Yeah. Hmm.
so that's also a really huge bonus. So obviously the work starts to get us and stay in that division.
Hmm.
So
Are you interested
hopefully
in
we get.
coaching? Are you interested in coaching?
Um, not as of yet. Obviously, knowing the different tactics and stuff, but it's coaching is a whole different ball
Right.
game. I mean, managers who know their tactics but cannot implement them. At the same time, managers who aren't really as good with their tactics but get their team to function. So it's a whole
Hmm.
different ball game which I've not gone into yet. I think I'm still young enough to
Hmm.
a lot of time ahead to even later on if I want to try it out. So
Right.
not as of yet.
Now, best of luck for your work, and I hope we keep
Thanks
in
a
touch.
lot.
I'll be reading your stuff.
Yes,
It's
yes,
very informational, obviously. And
yes.
again,
Thanks a lot.
I hope United also do very well. That's very important. Even Netherlands, obviously, in the Euros. Yeah.
Yes,
It was
hopefully.
nice having you,
Thanks
Ashwin.
a lot. Thanks a lot for having you on the call.
Yeah.